Hi everybody, I'm Andrew Adamson, director of this movie, and I'm here with our 5 young cast members. I have with me Georgie Hanley, who plays Lucy.
Hi everybody. Hello.
Anna Popplewell, who plays Susan.
Hello.
Skander Keynes, who plays Edmund.
Hello.
Will Mosley, who plays Peter.
Hello.
And of course, Ben Barnes, who plays the young Prince Caspian.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello there.
Hello. Welcome to the commentary.
Loco.
This beginning piece is actually interesting because this whole idea of the planet sort of emerging to cover the Walden logo actually only came up about 2 weeks before we finished the movie, and we're looking for a way to emphasise the coming together of Tava and Ellenville, otherwise known as Tylenol and Advil.
What?
Appropriate for the number of headache. Oh, I'm using brand names again already, straight into the commentary.
See, I always get scared by that bit.
Any good family movie should start with a birthing scene, I think.
The birth of the film.
And she still manages to look lovely when she's like giving birth.
This is Alicia Borrachero, who is a wonderful Spanish actress who we were lucky to get for the film. Plays King Miraz's wife, Prina Prismia.
I think I'm right in saying the only Spanish actor in the film.
No, Simon Andrew. Also,
Oh, yes.
Yes, one
Yeah.
of the lords. And at the birthing scene was my assistant, Alina. This is our introduction to Miraz with both Pierfrancesco Favino and Sergio Castellitto, two really wonderful Italian actors. Again, one of the things with making the Telmarines ostensibly Mediterranean meant that we could really cast from a wonderful pool of actors all over the world, as far as Mexico, through Spain, Italy, Belgium, and England.
And Wimbledon.
And Wimbledon.
Poor Vincent was so hot in that cloak in the studios we were filming in.
This was in Prague in summer, and it was actually Vincent's first day shooting, I think. But we made him run up and down the hallway in this giant cape. He wasn't enjoying it. We had a lot of fun doing this scene because in one take we actually decided while Ben was asleep with his eyes closed to switch out Vincent with Alina, and he got a full kiss on the mouth, which caused a great deal of surprise.
And then she jumped into bed with me, which caused even more
What's
surprise.
going on?
Your aunt has given birth to a son.
Don't know if this is suitable for a PG film, but there we go.
Come.
Andrew, how did you do this next shot with all the feathers that come up in the middle of the bed? This
It was
bit,
actually,
Yeah,
it was
that's a
quite
great shot.
It's no, the, this
ridiculously
shot.
complicated.
Yeah.
We did have crossbows, pneumatic crossbows that actually shot real arrows through to cause all the rips and so on, but then there were actually tiny squibs, like explosive devices within the bed that blew all the feathers up. And it took a number of takes to get it actually all working together.
Yeah.
And the bed was also, sometimes the curtains were pulled by tiny threads, and it was a whole lot of things so we could get the rip to happen in the right place. Here's Ben on a horse, a very experienced horse rider. He's been riding since the age of 8, is that correct, Ben?
Yes,
Shetland ponies.
yes, almost every day. This is a very good example of one of the most difficult things of making this entire film, which is actually keeping horses still whilst you're doing a scene.
Keeping them still and trying to avoid them pooping.
But actually, the horses. In this scene, this horse is a very good actor. He got nervous and twitchy just at the right
he did,
moment.
didn't he? Yeah.
Which horse is that? Is that which one, Ben?
I think that's Bonte
Bonte.
or Ulve, one of the big Spanish
Ulve was more like stocky,
ones. Yeah.
bit more chubby,
Good juxtaposition, Andrew.
but still toned.
This, of course, is Douglas Gresham making a very, very tiny cameo. That's C.S. Lewis's stepson.
And was also in the first film.
Yes, there's a voice in the first one.
The dialect coach William Conacher, I believe, gave him about a 6.5-minute lesson on how to do our Telmarine accent.
How would you judge his performance?
I think it's pretty good. He goes with the Mexican version of a song, which I liked.
This is now actually in the South Island of New Zealand. This is actually some of the first scenes you shot, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I think.
we shot the film pretty much chronologically, almost all the way through, didn't we?
Just about. Actually, a lot of this material was shot by our second unit director, John Mahaffey, who stayed longer in the South Island to mainly pick up the scene. We, of course, had incredible weather in the South Island. The whole time it was fine, not a drop of rain.
We almost got flooded in one day, didn't we?
Yes, we did. We had to actually drive out of Queenstown because it was so wet that we couldn't fly.
One day
I
after you
remember-
all abandoned me there, it actually snowed.
In the middle of
There was a day
summer,
that it
I
snowed
know.
after you all...
I remember when
Swan
it
off
was
back to Europe.
snowing in summer, and second unit was sending us loads of pictures, and your face under it was like you were dying inside.
I was
Because you're
dying
about to shoot
inside.
there in about 2 weeks or something. So funny.
Now this is impressive for a boy who has only ridden a Shetland pony at the age of 8. It's a very impressive stuff.
This was one of my favourite things to do. Just that initial splash into the water there was a really exhilarating experience. I remember the horses being very, very twitchy, did not want to be on that beach, and so they would rear up whilst I was waiting sort of on my own on the beach, which was kind of terrifying, but...
The other interesting thing about that is that they ride into the river in New Zealand and they fall off their horses in Slovenia almost 6 months later.
Yeah.
And it was an incredibly closely matching
But it
environment.
means I got to do it twice, which I love.
Exactly.
I love that bit when, they've just fallen off into the water.
So Ben, how do they do this with you?
They actually, I was on a sort of metal plate, and my foot was actually attached to a sort of cart.
Quad bike, wasn't it?
So quad bike, yeah, exactly. And they sort of drove through the forest. And I remember the next day, because I was kept reaching up to dislodge my foot, my neck was so stiff for about 2 days I couldn't look left or right. This was my very first day of shooting. Actually, this was almost my very first shot.
It's just
You dragged me
freaky.
kicking and screaming into this movie. My very first shot, I walked on set and you said, "Okay, lie down," and then spent most of the time lying down in almost the whole film.
There's a lot of... You fall over a
I
lot.
fall over a lot, but I also spend a lot of time in various beds.
Yes. Prince Caspian the Sleepy.
Yes, exactly.
So, of course, there's Peter Dinklage and Warwick Davis with Ken Stott, who is Badger.
And Trump can sacrifice himself.
Peter is actually, other than the Four Pevens, he's one of the first people I even cast on this film. Is basically wrote the part of Trumpkin for Peter from seeing his moments in The Station Agent. Just always so blown away by him. He knew he would be perfect. And here we are in lovely Prague,
Not London.
as you can tell by by the air raid balloons.
But is that Nelson's column that you computed into the back
Yes,
there?
absolutely.
Very clever.
It's Ash.
You go to St Finbar's.
That's right.
I go to Hendon House.
Ash is actually a New Zealander and managed to do an English accent perfectly, which puts a lot of shame on us.
Sitting by yourself.
Yes, well, I prefer to be left alone.
This is actually pretty much just Anna as her normal self.
What I look like on
Sitting-
the weekend.
Sitting by herself.
Fending off male admirers.
Yes, exactly.
I
Yes.
remember this was when I was running down the thing, and I basically I ran into this guy, righted myself, ran on, and then my foot just went off the pavement and I skidded, and my knee was all grazed, and I didn't know it was I started crying, but it didn't really hurt. I think it was just the shock, and my suitcase fell down. And I heard Anna go, and it was because she thought that the suitcase falling on the ground was like my leg or something breaking.
I couldn't believe that lion was actually there on that street in Prague.
No, it was
just
so weird.
an unbelievable.
And that was right round the corner
incident.
from where we were all living when
Yeah.
we were there.
Oh, this is fun to shoot.
This is one of our first
saving
days
Will
of
from
shooting,
being
actually.
beaten up.
The guy kneeing me right there is actually my stunt double, who didn't really do that much because I wanted to do all my own stunts. But this was actually probably the most painful fight out of everything. This is my first day of shooting, and I got punched, kicked, thrown around, and each bruise just hit in the same place, and that was probably the most painful fight I did out of all of it.
Really
hate
did torture
that.
everybody on their first
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, this is the tame train fight, which is in the C.S. Lewis book. Is this in the book?
No.
No.
No, this was actually really part of, you know, I always felt in reading the first one how hard it must have been, particularly for Peter, to have gone from being High King to going back to high school, and what that would do to him and do to his ego.
Secondary school. Secondary school.
I call it high school. It's a multinational cast.
British.
But I always thought that would be a really hard thing for a kid to go through, and it's not something that C.S. Lewis really got into, but in trying to create more depth for the characters and more reality to the situation, I kind of wanted to deal with what all the kids would go through having left behind that incredible experience and wanting to relive it.
I mean, don't you ever get tired of being treated like a kid?
We are kids.
Well, I wasn't always.
Scanner, you actually look younger.
It's been a year.
Now, you mean?
No.
Because that was a year ago.
No, I mean, like, no,
look,
you mean...
look who can talk, little Miss Georgie.
No, but I mean, like, if you think about in Narnia, you seem a lot older.
Pretend you're talking to me.
As do
Well,
I.
you're saying it's odd that a year ago I looked younger.
No, in Narnia, when you get into Narnia in the film, you look older.
There's the Narnian
That's because
ear.
time had gone by.
No, but it was a conscious decision within the costuming, within the hairstyles, everything, is that the Narnian ear is meant to make you age more quickly. So all of you guys were meant to very quickly age when you get there, and it's all, you know, partly to do with EC's costumes, partly to do with how we let you wear your hair, all of those kind of things.
I got the Croydon facelift, which made me look a bit more kind of younger because my plaits kind of pulled back any kind of excess skin that I had on my face.
I mean, obviously, because all you guys, as actors, are older, you know, the characters have had to be aged up very slightly, but I think that it makes for very interesting relationships between the characters throughout the film, as, you know, as Narnia does sort of represent, you know, somebody's adolescence.
Yeah. This was one of my favourite beaches as a child, and I'd actually wanted to use this in the last film. It's in the Coromandel Peninsula in New Zealand. And actually revisiting this beach and seeing the tunnel there was the main gave me the main idea for doing a subway station as opposed to a sort of a country train station, because it kind of gave you the sense of going from one tunnel to another and then Narnia opening up out of that. And this was such a beautiful, beautiful place. And being able to be there when there was no one there, no footprints in the sand, was such an incredible privilege.
And Anna, what was meant to happen originally?
Oh, I remember. Originally, the script said that I was meant, like, everyone else was meant to stay standing on the beach, and I was meant to go running into the water and dive in. And on the one hand, I'd said to Andrew that it was completely far too Baywatch, and that, that I couldn't deal with it. And then on the other hand, we went to rehearse on this beach, and we all just thought it was so beautiful and so lovely that we all dived in. And actually, it was very funny because while we were rehearsing, we ended up sort of chasing each other around, and I think this was the day that Skander outran William.
He didn't outrun me. I actually caught him.
He did outrun you, actually.
I caught him.
You didn't catch him.
Yes,
No.
I did. Skander, I
I'm
caught you,
witness
didn't
to
I?
that.
I'm not.
I
Listen
caught
to
him.
Andrew.
I caught him. He was quick. I remember it. He was quick, but I caught him.
Because Will is Mr. Macho Man all time, 24/7.
So you cut a little scene in there, didn't you?
Yeah, there used to be a scene when they were
your
discussing
scene?
the apples, and there's actually two scenes in here that largely became just a bit expositional, and it was dealing with the apples and where the apple trees came from, and it's sort of part of the book that deals with how long they've been away. And I just really felt that in the context of the greater film, you sort of get that. You don't need that level of explanation, exposition, and it felt like we wanted to get into the story.
I think even when we were filming it, some of the dialogue, it was hard to give that message without it feeling expositional.
Exactly.
That was so beautiful, that view.
That's my favourite shot of you, Georgie, when you come up with the whole film, I think.
Oh, thank you, William.
I mean, if it weren't for the movement of the waves, you might think it was a CG backdrop.
Yeah,
I've had people ask me that with a few of the locations, and we actually shot a lot more locations in this film, whereas the last film we shot maybe 40% locations. I think we were more like 60 or 65% on location this time, and I think it just kind of gave the film a bit more scope, and it's just so much nicer than shooting in a dark studio all the time.
With a big green
You just have
glare.
to accept the rain.
Yes, it can be a little frustrating, but on days like this, it's good.
Remember when we came into rehearsal and I was wearing Converse's worst choice because it was so like sizzling hot.
Were you dealing with sunburn at this point, Skander?
Yeah.
That's right, Mr. Lobster Legs.
Wow.
Squint
My
spell.
saying.
Actually, he wasn't the only person who got sunburned, I believe, Anna.
I got sunburnt on the beach when we in the next few scenes.
Yeah, I know, and you claimed that it was while you were actually shooting, but it seems so conveniently after a weekend.
The line where I got sunburnt was right where my costume was.
It's a good shot. And this is amazing. This gives you the real scope.
This is actually a miniature that they did down in Weta in Wellington.
I remember the first day I walked onto the castle set and I looked up at the turrets and you came over to me, Andrew, and said, yeah, this will be 3 times bigger when we're finished with it in CGI. And my jaw dropped to the floor. I remember feeling very lucky that day.
This is a remarkable piece of production design by Roger Ford and his art department team, and an incredible piece of construction. We actually found a castle outside of France called Pierrefonds that I sort of based a lot of this action sequence later on, and we're considering shooting in Paris, and they came back and said, well, if you want to build your own castle, it's actually more affordable, and then you can actually design it around the stunts. So it was an incredible opportunity to build basically a full-scale castle courtyard, and partly really helped by the incredible craftspeople and construction costs in Prague.
And where did they import the stone from for the floor? They imported
Yeah, no, it was all like real slate floors, and it was amazing, yeah.
You didn't want to fall on it, that's for sure.
This is also a beautiful set. It's not very often in a film, and again, it was really great production design and really efficient use of construction. It's not very often that you get to build a set of this kind of scale that is really used for relatively few minutes of screen time, but gives a lot of depth and realism and texture and just a sense of reality and scale to the Telmarine world.
And we also have Tim Coddington right there, our
production manager.
Production manager.
He's actually thinking right there, I should be supervising second unit right now. Things are going over budget.
I love the sort of the historical sort of Telmarine imagery of the stars and also lots of the eagles. If you look at the arms of the chairs there, they all have sort of bald eagle heads. It's sort of very sort of historically potent imagery, I think.
I love these costumes too. I think E.C. Mussenden, our costume designer, did just an incredible job with the Telmarine costumes. The palette, the textures, the amount of detail I really love.
And I love the fact that they all kind of are uniform, but you can find something out about all of them in the way that they're a little bit different.
No, and half of those frames end up looking like Caravaggio paintings, and that was a lot of the inspiration for the tones and colours. And she worked very closely with Walter Lindenlaub, our cinematographer, to kind of bring together the colours of the sets, the lighting, and the costumes.
Sergio is such a good actor, though. Just such a presence.
Oh, that's horrible. Hate this bit. Because like when we were filming with Peter, we only saw him with like most of the beating up gone away, and it was just like old crusted wounds and stuff. And this is all too real.
Peter does a lot without saying anything. He's really an incredibly expressive actor. I was very, very lucky to have him.
He was saying that when he saw the film about 6 weeks ago for the first time, he was kind of surprised by, he does so much eye acting. He does a lot with his eyes. And then he thought, hang on, no, wait, it's because it's one of the only parts of my face that I could actually move.
They had control of, yes, it wasn't covered with yak hair or makeup.
He had a big prosthetic kind of set up each day, didn't he?
Yes, that brow piece with the frown built in was actually a prosthetic piece, and for probably the first 3 or 4 weeks of shooting, I'd see him glowering at me, and I just thought he hated me. And I kept saying, "Are you okay, Peter? Is everything okay?" And he's like, "It's the makeup." The frown was actually built in.
Find Prince Caspian and finish what our ancestors began.